One pattern that I find very common is that usually we start with taking care of everything ourselves. So especially in our own domain, we are doing, for example, if you're into tech, you're doing the coding, you're taking care of the installation, you're taking care of infrastructure and everything. And you, as the team grows, the scope of your responsibility grows, or our responsibility. And we find it a bit challenging to tackle everything that we have to do and still take care of a team while we have a bigger team. So one common pattern that I see, or one statement that many tell me, whether as a mentor, as a coach, or in my own previous organizations, that, hey, I have a bigger team now, but I feel like I have less time doing something meaningful. And when I ask, why don't you delegate? Why don't you have a bigger team, why don't you let them take care of it? The answers are usually around the same pattern. Either basically we cannot let go because we don't have the right people in the team, or the team is not there yet, or they make mistakes, they don't have self-initiative, they are not driven, they don't have the motivation. And at the end of the day, younger team leads feel like that they still have to take care of everything themselves. Not literally everything, but they still need to have their hands in every corner. But yeah, true, sometimes we don't have the right people. Sometimes we don't have the right team that we want. But if you dig in, far too often you realize that it's not that the team is not capable of doing the job. It's not that the individuals do not have the ability or the knowledge. It's that in most cases they are not really empowered to do so. Let's see, what does this empowerment mean? We hear it a lot recently. It sounds like an interesting concept. So I thought of digging in a bit deeper and look at the term. So empowerment as a concept means the degree of self-determination and autonomy in an agent, person, society, team. But as a process, it is the professional support of others so that they have an increased sense of autonomy, they have authority to make decisions and take responsibility for the decisions and their actions. And then they have the ability, or better, to recognize their resources and use them more efficiently. And this links very nicely to the definition of a successful leader by William Prentice, like decades ago, to basically make use of such a tool. When you look into application of empowerment in workplace, various research shows that there are tons of benefits. To every research, of course, there are also questions and doubts on the numbers, but many commonly agree that an empowered team has higher job performance, can make faster, better decisions. Some say up to 4 times faster than non-empowered teams because they have the confidence and they're enabled. They have better job satisfaction, and they are quite committed to the purpose of the business and purpose of the team. And above that, which I found very interesting, is they show a higher sense of initiative and creativity, which is sort of a hidden value for the business because you want ideas, new ideas, to come from your team and not necessarily from your leadership team. So it all sounds very alluring and very exciting, but how can we have this at workplace? So how can we basically have it, whatever that thing is? That's mainly where I'm going to dig in a bit deeper. Before we start, one of the most important points that I consider for empowerment is that it's a journey. You need to recognize that it's not going to happen overnight. You need to recognize that it's going to be challenging, and you need to be determined to go through it, to face the challenges, to self-reflect, to have the intention to understand why you are doing it, and have the patience and determination to go through it. Sometimes along the way we get lost. Sometimes we do something with the best of intention, or we want to have a better team, or we want to have a higher performing team, and it backfires. Because, I don't know, the person that you're empowering was not ready for it, because you missed on some of the points, because you have people telling you that, no, as a strong leader, you need to have authority, and you need to make decisions, and you cannot be democratic, or. There are tons of these statements I've heard from others or from my coaching and mentorship sessions. But recognizing that it's a journey and it takes time helps you build the stamina that is needed. Because once you have an empowered team, once you work with an empowered team, you don't want to go back. Something that some people confuse a bit regarding empowerment, and perhaps that makes it thinking that it's easier to implement, is that, look, I want to be an empowering leader. I let my team decide, and I also don't poke into their business that much, so I have more time to do my job. But in reality, it cannot be far from that. Actually, empowering leaders, successful ones, are ones who are more involved. It's just that it's a different nature of involvement. You don't talk to your people, to your team, in a let's say, traditional autocratic way. You are there for them to serve, to guide, to help, to inspire, to basically help them grow. So if you want to go on this journey, understand that it's a journey of being more involved with your team. It's just that the nature of the involvement is different. It requires highly involved, more frequent interactions. I tried to gather a set of ingredients that I consider for having an empowered team, basically to have empowerment in your work culture. I'm not claiming that that's all, but in my subjective opinion, if you take care of these, you basically take care of everything that is needed. I will, since the time is limited, I will have time to look into some of these things today. Many of them require their own talk, but then at the end, we wrap it up as well. So it starts with communication of intent, just so that I name them. Having a line, goal, and purpose, a clear definition of a scope of authority, trust. Training is very important. I will not have time to touch upon it. Having principles and guidelines to guide your team, and back to having frequent interactions with your team. It all starts with communication of intent. Sometimes we miss that, very obvious. But the obvious point is, if your team is not fully aware of your intent as a leader, they will not be able to actually contribute to it. So what is very important and requires repetition is to clarify what is the goal. Often try to repeat it to make sure that from your side, the intent is clear. Aside the obvious aspect of it, there is another benefit to it, which is plans change, situations change. If you have a bigger team, you don't want the team to constantly be in touch with you on everything they do. But if they know where you want to go, they can take care of the path. If they know what is the end goal that we are aiming for, if situation changes, if challenges come up, they can navigate it better. In a way, they can navigate through the chaos if they know your intent. But then communication of intent by itself is not completely enough, because you need to also understand what is their intent, what is driving them, what are their intentions, what are their goals. And a successful leader is one that can marry the intention of the team, or its own intention, to the intention of individuals in the team, so that they are bound together, so that they're aligned, and also you understand whether your team wants that degree of involvement, that degree of empowerment. So it's, at its core, though I've written it with a small font, avoid assumptions. Make sure that you communicate what you think the team should achieve, but also understand what are their drivers, and see how you can match these two together. And once you have done this, then you need to define what is the scope of their authority? Because it's not that as a leader you say, look guys, you know what you're going to do and it fits your purpose and I can just step away. No. There are decisions that are okay to be taken by the team. There are decisions that ultimately require your validation, require your final touch because they are business critical. And communicating that to the team is very important because it also gives the team the confidence to move more freely within their scope of authority. And once you have defined that scope, once you have communicated, so for example, in these corner, these decisions, just take it, I trust you, you have the expertise. If you don't, you'll make mistake, you'll learn from it. Once you have that defined, make sure that you respect it. Make sure that you don't step on it again. Make sure that you don't question their decisions in an objective manner. And that is a bit tricky, connects to trust, which comes up. But whatever you do, even within that scope of authority, they will make mistakes. There will be failures. So what is important for you is to also be okay with failure. Again, another topic for another talk. But the attitude of looking at failure as something that I can take a lesson from, and maybe if it's a big failure, you may want to put tools and mechanisms in place to prevent it, but be okay with it. Don't question it too many times. I have talked to leaders who, by nature, are actually quite empowering, but their team is not empowered. And sometimes when I dig in, I realize that they are really not okay with failure. They consider it a very bad thing. If you look at their Slack messages or emails or communications, you see that they're questioning seriously why such a mistake happens. That creates a team that is not then confident to navigate within their scope of authority. And all that requires trust, because you need to trust your team that they are doing their best to actually make those decisions, that they are putting everything they can, they are doing this with good intention. If you don't trust your team, you will question them far more often, because you think maybe they're slacking, because you think maybe they don't care, and this then also changes their behavior, again takes away the confidence. But what is important with trust, because if you look at text, many texts talk about, you need to trust your people. What I believe is that it's a trust, but you still have the responsibility, no? So you still need to verify. And the fine line is there. How do you show your team that you trust them, but you occasionally verify the output, the achievements, so that you can guide them, you can prevent mistakes from happening earlier perhaps, and that line, navigating that line is very fine. But whatever you do, you should not detach yourself. What does it mean? Goes back to frequent interactions. You still need to be there. You show that I'm there. I trust you, it's your decision, it's your domain of expertise. But if you need my support, I'm there. So trust, but don't detach. I would consider it another ingredient. And as I said, links back to highly interactive, highly involved interactions. Far too many times I talk to people, especially new leaders, and I ask them, how do you talk to your team? How many one-on-ones do you have? And a common answer I get is that, I trust them. I know that they do their job. I can check what they are doing based on, backlogs, dailies, and So I don't really need to talk to them that much. And I think we get the notion of one-on-one wrong. Because as a leader, you want to be there for your team. You want to support them. You want to serve them. You need to be listening. You need to be helping. You need to be offering your support, sharing information. You will have a lot of information that the team may not have, and you need to share it back to the team. And you need to acknowledge their achievements, their good achievements. Perhaps a boundary is don't make decisions within their scope of authority. We can expand on this a bit more. Sometimes the team uses the notion of escalation to have the leader make decisions for the team. that is an easy situation for the team because they're like, yes, you know better, we are talking, what is your opinion, what would you do here? And then they follow your advice. That's why it's very important that in such conversations, when you're there to help, you're not there to make decisions for them, if it is their decision. You are there to only help them, to guide them with your experience and let them decide. Going back to the list, I'm trying to keep it short because we are almost at time. As I mentioned, I have not covered everything, but I mentioned 2 big points here. One is that it's a journey. The other one is that you need to be regularly communicating to the team. You need to be for the team. There is a third but very important one, which emerges if you take care of these ingredients. And that is psychological safety. If the team is afraid to make mistakes, if the team is afraid to raise a point, if they're afraid of pointing out your mistakes, they will not be empowered to put their best into their job. This is yet another topic for a bigger talk, but I found it super interesting, and it's all connected. So everything I said, you see traces of each aspect in each other. But it's very important that you create a culture in which your team feels safe, confident to make decisions, to take actions, and move forward. And at the end, leadership is about human beings, which means it's not going to be easy. We can talk easily about theories and definitions and best practices. This part is easy. But at the end of the day, you are unique with your unique team, unique human beings with their beautiful complexities, and you will face unique challenges. So going back to the journey, it's very important to be determined, to have the intention to be there for your team, to guide them, to help them, and to empower them. Thank you for your time.